Shantel Voss reclined in her velvet swivel chair, emerald eyes flashing with a dangerous boredom. The boardroom hummed with a low murmur of directors finalizing tomorrow's 8-figure biotech merger, but Shantel felt nothing except the itch for disruption. She scanned the room, hunting for a spark, and found it in the corner. A custodian in a navy jumpsuit polished the brass elevator rail with mechanical precision. Perfect. She jabbed a manicured finger toward him. You ragman. Come here and tell us how you'd play 10 million on the market. Laughter rippled across the table. Phones rose to capture the joke. Blake Harlan paused mid-swipe, cloth still in hand. His voice cut through the mirth, low and steady. Miss Voss, before I answer, you should lock the doors. Shantel snorted. Lock the doors. For a janitor's fantasy portfolio. Blake's gaze did not waver. Your Gene Forge merger signs at dawn. By noon you hemorrhage 200 million. Her smirk died. The boardroom froze. A voiceover sliced the silence. What happens next will torch Voss Dynamics to the ground, or crown its savior from the shadows. Will Shantel's ego bankrupt her empire? Can the night shift cleaner rewrite Wall Street? Viewers, stay until the credits. Rate 1 to 10 below. Subscribe. Hit the bell. Let's roll the full reel. Dawn spilled copper light across the 42nd floor war room of Voss Dynamics. A glass and steel eyrie perched high above the city skyline. Shantel Voss, 42, raven hair pulled into a sleek ponytail, emerald eyes sharp as broken crystal, paced in a crimson sheath dress and Louboutin spikes. Cartier bracelets glinted on every wrist as she flicked through holographic slides with imperial confidence. Gene Forge closes at 9 a.m., she announced to the 8 directors seated around the obsidian table. 400 million upside in 18 months. Locked and loaded. Tablets glowed. Heads nodded in practice deference. Shantel drank in their submission like oxygen. She thrived on control, on the knowledge that her 52% stake could silence any dissent with a single vote. That was when she noticed him. Blake Harlan, 55, salt and pepper stubble framing a lean face, broad shoulders swallowed by a navy jumpsuit. He burnished the elevator call panel with the rhythm of a metronome, invisible to anyone wearing a keycard above level 5. 3 years on the graveyard shift had perfected his camouflage. Shantel's pulse quickened. She craved a spark, something to shatter the monotony of sycophancy. A mischievous smile curved her lips. Hey, polish boy, she called, voice dripping syrupy venom. Name. Blake set the rag aside, squared his shoulders. Blake Harlan, ma'am. Blake, we're allocating 10 million today. Enlighten us peasants. What's your genius move? Titters erupted. CFO Liam Pierce hid a smirk behind his latte. Oh, Vanessa Klein rolled her eyes. Blake stepped forward, boots silent on the marble. Ma'am, I don't gamble. But your Gene Forge play. Cancel it. Their lead CRISPR patent expires in 36 hours. The Tokyo Consortium filed the override last night. Your analysts filtered for U.S. dockets only. Silence detonated. Shantel's stylus clattered to the table. Verify, she snapped. Liam's fingers flew across his tablet. The holoscreen bloomed with a Japanese filing. Timestamp 2:14 a.m. Tokyo time. Patent void. Gene Forge worthless. 200 million evaporated in a blink. Liam paled. He's right. Shantel rounded on Blake, heels stabbing the floor. Security, seal the floor. Now. Doors locked with a hydraulic hiss. Phones were confiscated. The board sat stunned. HR yanked Blake's file in under 2 minutes. Hired 4 years ago via agency. Botless references. No college. Yet the trail vanished 14 years prior. No birth record. No prior address. Vanessa hissed. Ghost. Shantel ordered the room cleared until only she and Blake remained beneath the silent chandeliers. The air conditioner hummed like a distant warning. Shantel circled him slowly. Who the hell are you? Blake exhaled, the first crack in his composure. Just the custodian, ma'am. Custodians don't read patent law in haiku. His gaze held steady. I read what lands in the shred bins. Shantel stopped in front of him, arms crossed. Talk. Blake's voice dropped to a murmur. I used to run quantitative models for a hedge fund that laundered cartel cash. I flipped for the DOJ, testified sealed, watched my wife die in a mugging 3 days later. I erased myself. Took the lowest visibility job on earth. Chantel's empire suddenly felt paper-thin. You've been spying. Listening. You talk loud when you think no one's beneath you. She studied him, calculating. The merger was salvageable if she moved fast. But Blake was a loose thread that could unravel everything. Or stitch it tighter. She offered a devil's bargain. Stay invisible. Feed me intel via dead drops. In exchange, I shield the hourly staff from the next round of cuts. Blake countered without hesitation. Raise cafeteria wages 28%. Lock in pensions. No layoffs below supervisor. Chantel's eyes narrowed. You drive a hard bargain for a man with no leverage. I have the only leverage that matters. Knowledge. She extended her hand. Deal. They shook once, firm and cold. Shantel already planned the cover. Tomorrow she would publicly fire him for insubordination, to bury the scandal. The board would grumble but obey her majority stake. Blake would vanish back into the shadows, napkin notes tucked inside mop buckets. And Voss dynamics would never be the same. The next morning, Shantel convened an emergency board session in the same war room, but the copper dawn had given way to harsh fluorescent glare. Directors filed in with wary glances, sensing blood in the water. Shantel stood at the head of the obsidian table, crimson dress replaced by a severe charcoal sheath that absorbed the light. She wasted no time. Yesterday's interruption was a calculated stunt by a delusional opportunist, she declared, voice slicing the tension. A hollow image of Blake's HR file projected above the table. The bland GED, the agency hire stamp. Blake Harlan accessed restricted areas, spouted conspiracy nonsense about Gene Forge, and disrupted a 9-figure deal. Effective immediately. He is terminated for gross insubordination. Liam cleared his throat. The patent tip was accurate. Chantel's stare pinned him. Public noise any intern could have scraped from Tokyo filings. Harlan wanted attention. He got it. Vanessa leaned forward, manicured nails drumming. Convenient timing. He vanishes the same day we dodge a bullet. Shantel smiled without warmth. Security escorted him out at 6:12 a.m. Personal effects in a cardboard box. End of story. The board shifted uneasily, but her 52% stake loomed like a guillotine. A vote was called. Termination passed unanimously. Phones stayed in pockets this time. Shantel dismissed them with a flick of her wrist. Vanessa lingered, eyes narrowed, but Shantel was already scrolling her tablet, feigning disinterest. The CEO left without another word. The cover held for now. At 3:07 a.m. the following night, Shantel descended to the sub-basement parking garage. Louboutin spikes traded for silent sneakers. Fluorescent tubes buzzed overhead, casting long shadows across oil-stained concrete. Blake waited beside a rusted maintenance cart, jumpsuit swapped for a hooded sweatshirt, face half hidden. No pleasantries. Shantel tossed him a burner phone. Dead drop protocol. Cafeteria condiment caddy. Third shelf behind the salt. Napkin notes only. No names, no patterns. Blake pocketed the phone. Wage hike starts at 28% for cafeteria, janitorial and security. Pensions vested after 5 years, not 10. No layoffs below supervisor without my sign-off. Shantel arched a brow. You negotiate like a union boss. I negotiate like a man who knows where the bodies are buried. She studied him in the dim light. You get your reforms. I get silence and intel. Breach either, and your federal protection evaporates. Blake nodded once. Deal. They shook hands in the stale air, the pact sealed beneath layers of concrete and secrecy. Shantel climbed back into the service elevator, pulse steady. Above, the Empire slept. Below, the gears had already begun to turn. 48 hours later, during the 2 p.m. cafeteria rush, Shantel slipped into the employee dining hall disguised in a catering jacket. She lifted a napkin from the condiment caddy. Scrawled in block letters. Evergreen Supplies. Invoice 4782B. Inflated 12% on rare earth magnets. Crosscheck PO 1194. She memorized it, tucked the napkin into her pocket, and exited before anyone noticed. By 4 p.m. her forensic accounting team had audited Evergreen. The vendor had padded invoices for 18 months, skimming $8 million. Shantel fired them on a video call, voice ice cold. Effective immediately. Payment frozen. Lawsuit incoming. The savings hit the quarterly report as supply chain optimization. No one connected it to a discarded napkin. That evening, alone in her corner office, Shantel poured a finger of scotch and opened the HR dashboard. Employee turnover stats glowed on the screen. Cafeteria staff at 68% annually. Janitorial at 72%. Double shifts were standard. Overtime pay capped at time and a half. She scrolled through exit interviews. No advancement. Can't afford rent. Management doesn't see us. For the first time, the numbers felt personal. She pictured the line cooks flipping burgers at midnight, the cleaners emptying executive trash at dawn. Blake's voice echoed. You talk loud when you think no one's beneath you. Guilt flickered, unfamiliar and sharp. She closed the dashboard, stared out at the city lights, and made a silent promise. The reforms would come. Not out of kindness, but because an empire built on invisible backs was an empire waiting to collapse. Shantel drained the last of the scotch, the burn chasing away the aftertaste of guilt. She locked the dashboard and left the office lights on, a signal to the night crew that the 40th floor was empty. 42 floors below, Blake Harlan clocked in at 11:03 p.m., badge swipe silent. The building belonged to him now. He started in the executive mailroom, fluorescent hum masking the rustle of shredded documents. A confetti of half-inch strips spilled from the industrial crosscut bins. Blake knelt, gloved fingers sifting. Most were junk, expense reports, doodled margins. But one strip caught the light. Short position. Voss, expiration December 15th. He pocketed it, moved on. In the HVAC chase above the 39th floor. He lay flat on a catwalk, ear pressed to a vent grate. Two vice presidents argued in hushed tones about a client dinner. If Apex undercuts us on the lithium contract. Blake noted the names, the restaurant, the 8:15 reservation. By 2 a.m. he had mapped every camera blind spot on a napkin grid. Elevator alcoves, service corridors, the blind curve outside the server room. His mental ledger grew. Deal codes, whispered betrayals, the faint click of a rival's encrypted call. No one saw the custodian with the push broom. They saw only clean floors. Tuesday, 3:17 a.m. A napkin appeared in the condiment caddy. Board member Klein, shorting 50K Voss shares via Cayman Shell. Broker, Meridian Capital. Shantel read it at dawn, pulse hammering. Vanessa's husband sat on the board. She summoned the member, Harold Klein, to her office at 9:05. Resign by noon or I leak the trades to the SEC. Harold blustered, then folded. His letter hit the intranet by 11:47. Stock dipped 2 points, then stabilized. Shantel exhaled. One trader down. Wednesday, 1:42 a.m. Blake crouched beside the payroll server rack, LED glow painting his face green. A firmware update had installed a dormant backdoor. Classic ransomware prelude. He traced the payload to a shell company in Estonia. Napkin note. Patch payroll version 3.8.1. Backdoor line 4472. Demand hits Friday. He pushed the fix at 4:12 a.m. No ransom ever arrived. The CIO took credit in the morning stand-up. Shantel let him. Thursday, 2:58 a.m. Blake lingered in the lobby planter, earbud feeding him a live feed from the 38th floor conference room. A rival VP bragged over speakerphone. Voss's lithium client jumps ship Monday. Exclusive terms already drafted. Blake memorized the clause numbers. Napkin. Apex poaching Lithium Co. Counter with 18-month lock, 2% rebate. Shantel called the client at 8:03 a.m., sweetened the deal, locked it in blood. Apex's draft hit the shredder. By Friday the cafeteria buzzed with something new. Pay stubs reflected a 28% bump. A pop-up clinic opened in the old storage bay. Free checkups, flu shots, dental screenings. Turnover numbers, updated live on the intranet, plummeted 40% in a week. Line cooks high-fived over prime rib specials. Janitors swapped stories of locked pensions. Shantel walked the floor at noon, heels clicking slower than usual. She stopped a server named Rosa. "How does the raise hit the night crew?" Rosa blinked, then grinned. "We can breathe, Miss Voss." "Actually breathe." Shantel nodded, the question now reflex. "How does this hit the night crew?" Vanessa watched from her glass-walled office, arms folded. She pulled up the calendar. Klein resignation, payroll patch, lithium lock, all within 7 days of Blake's termination. Too neat. She cross-referenced the saved deals against the firing timestamp. Patterns emerged like frost on glass. Her fingers hovered over the intercom. Suspicion coiled, patient and cold. Vanessa's suspicion hardened into action by Monday noon. She slipped out during lunch, took the service elevator to the garage, and drove her silver coupe 3 blocks to a nondescript coffee shop on Pike Street. Inside, a man in a gray windbreaker waited at a corner table. Apex trace, retainer 75,000 wired before sunset. "Blake Harlan," she said, sliding a folder across. "Fired last week. I need everything before the firing." The PI nodded, eyes flat. 48 hours. Tuesday evening the report landed in Vanessa's encrypted inbox. 14-year void. No birth certificate, no tax filings, no driver's license before the janitorial hire. A single red flag glowed. Possible federal witness relocation. Vanessa's pulse quickened. She forwarded nothing, printed nothing. She simply closed the file and stared at the city lights, calculating angles. Shantel discovered the breach at 2:14 a.m. Wednesday. An IT alert pinged her phone. Unauthorized download from HR servers. She traced the IP to Vanessa's executive terminal. Fury ignited, white hot. She marched to the 41st floor executive washroom at 8:03 a.m. Heels echoing like gunshots. Vanessa stood at the sink, applying lipstick. Shantel locked the door behind her. "Apex trace. 75 grand. Explain." Vanessa met her gaze in the mirror, calm. "Due diligence." Shantel stepped closer, voice low. "You defy me, I call an emergency vote. 52% says you're gone by lunch. Your stock options vest never." Vanessa capped the lipstick, turned. "Curiosity isn't treason. It is when it endangers the company." Silence stretched. Vanessa's shoulders sagged a fraction. "Fine. I'll kill the contract." Chantel's eyes never blinked. "Do it now." Vanessa pulled her phone, dialed, cancelled. But as Shantel turned to leave, Vanessa palmed a micro-tracker from her purse and pressed it beneath the lip of Chantel's phone case. Invisible. Silent. At 3:47 a.m. Thursday a napkin appeared in the condiment caddy. PI tail, silver coupe, plate ends 7K9. Burner phone pinged garage 11:52 p.m. meet loading dock 4:15. Shantel read it under the harsh cafeteria bulbs, heart hammering. She descended to the dock at 4:03, sneakers silent on concrete. Blake waited beside a stack of pallets, hood up. Vanessa hired muscle. "They're digging federal channels." Shantel exhaled frost. "I handled her." Blake shook his head. "She planted a tracker." "Your phone." Shantel stared at the device, then crushed it beneath her heel. Glass glittered. "New burner tomorrow." "Same drop." Blake nodded. Clocks ticking. By 6:12 a.m. Shantel sat in her office, fresh phone in hand. She dialed a number burned into memory from Yale law mixer 20 years prior. Elena Drake, DOJ organized crime. It's Shantel Voss. Pause, then warmth. Roomy. Been a minute. Need a favor. Seal a file, Blake Harlan. Tag it ongoing sensitive investigation. Make it airtight. Elena chuckled. Cartel witness. Something like that. Done by noon. Blick. At 11:47 a.m. Apex Trace hit a federal wall. Access denied, case sealed. The PI emailed Vanessa. Trail dead. Recommend close. Vanessa stared at the screen, knuckles white. The tracker on Shantel's crushed phone blinked once, then went dark forever. The tracker's final blip died at 11:48 a.m., but the silence felt louder than any alarm. Shantel stared at the shattered phone, shards glittering like frost on the carpet. She swept them into a waste bin, then opened the secure laptop. A single encrypted message waited from an unknown sender. Tokyo Consortium Shell, Navarro Holdings. Loss, 1.2B. They're coming. She knew the name. Diego Navarro, 38, heir to a cartel fortune scrubbed clean through layered LLCs. The Gene Forge pullout had gutted his silent stake. He would not forgive. That afternoon a Gulfstream G650 touched down at the private terminal 30 miles north, tail number masked by a Panamanian registry. Diego stepped onto the tarmac in tailored linen, white against the tarmac heat, smile cold as surgical steel. His entourage moved like smoke, for operatives in rental sedans, earpieces blinking. By nightfall they owned the shadows around Voss Dynamics. A flower delivery van idled across the street, driver filming the lobby through tinted glass. Two men in mirrored sunglasses rotated shifts in the coffee kiosk, badges reading maintenance. A drone the size of a sparrow circled the rooftop at 2:14 a.m., thermal lens sweeping executive suites. Blake clocked every vector from the janitor's closet, napkin grid updated in real time. At 3:03 a.m. he left one word in the condiment caddy. Run. Shantel read it at 3:17, pulse hammering. She needed a ghost to chase the ghost. By 4:45 she sat in a downtown safe house, burner phone to her ear. Kira Holt. I have a job. The line crackled, then a gravel voice. Send coordinates. Kira arrived at 5:12, 50 years old, steel gray bob razor sharp, scar bisecting her left eyebrow like a lightning strike. Sensei legend in the shadows. Shantel slid a dossier across the table. You're Elena Drake. Disgruntled Voss analyst. You leaked Gene Forge to Tokyo. Make Diego believe it. Kira's eyes flicked through the pages. Timeline. 48 hours. Kira nodded once. Fee. 7 figures, untraceable. Done. They built the legend in a windowless room. Forged emails timestamped 3 weeks prior, routed through Tokyo proxies. Phone pings from a burner cloned to Elena's fictional apartment. Coffee receipts from a Shibuya cafe. Latte art smudged for authenticity. Kira memorized the script. Mid-level biotech analyst, passed over for promotion, bitter enough to sell secrets. By dawn the trail glowed digital and warm. Shantel uploaded the breadcrumbs to a dark web drop Diego's hackers couldn't resist. Thursday 6:03 p.m. Kira's Elena boarded a red-eye to Lisbon under a Canadian passport. Diego's men took the bait within hours. The flower van tailed her cab to the airport. Mirrored sunglasses watched from the gate. The drone feed switched to satellite tracking. Blake monitored from the subbasement, heart steady. Diego's net tightened around the wrong prey. For now the custodian breathed. Shantel's pulse still hammered from the suite door's click when her burner vibrated again. Suite 3000. 8 p.m. Bring Elena Drake. Or your supply chain burns. Asterisk asterisk. The message glowed on the cracked screen she had retrieved from the war room floor. Diego had escalated from probe to ultimatum in under 6 hours. She forwarded the text to Kira with a single word. Now. By 2:17 p.m. the war room became a pressure cooker. Kira sat cross-legged on the obsidian table, Steel bob pinned back, scar livid under the hollow lights. A redacted DOJ file hovered before her. Blake's sealed testimony, cartel routing numbers, the mugging report with the wife's name blacked out. Kira absorbed every line, lips moving silently. Mounts, the exact caliber of the bullet. She closed her eyes, recited the sequence backward, then forward. Perfect. Between pages she faced a hand mirror, practicing micro-expressions with surgical focus. A twitch of the left eyelid for guilt. Swallow for fear. A half-second glance to the lower right when lying about the Tokyo contact. Shantel paced, black tactical suit hugging her frame like armor. He'll drill the wife, she warned. Kira's reflection smirked. Let him. I've got scars older than his empire. Jonathan Price arrived at 3:45, legal head, silver temples gleaming, briefcase heavy with non-disclosure templates and a panic button wired to Meridian Security. Shantel briefed him in clipped sentences. Decoy recorded, deniable. Jonathan adjusted wire-rimmed glasses. If he records, we counter with trespass and extortion. Kira snorted. He won't record. He wants the kill clean. They ran the script 3 times. Kira enters first, shoulders slumped in Elena's defeated posture. Shantel and Jonathan 10 paces behind, badges visible. Hand signals locked. Thumb for stall, pinky for abort. By 6 o'clock the suite layout was etched in memory. 39th floor, 2 exits, service corridor blind at the ice machine. Kira slipped a micro-recorder into her bra. Jonathan palmed the panic button. Shantel checked her watch. Wheels up in 90. The Meridian lobby shimmered marble and gold at 7:56 p.m. Diego waited in suite 3000. Linen suit pristine. Smile sharp as obsidian. His operatives flanked the door, earpieces blinking. Kira entered alone, hoodie up, Elena's slouch perfected. Shantel and Jonathan followed, positioned by the panoramic windows, city lights glittering like scattered threats. Diego did not offer seats. Miss Drake, he began, voice silk over razor wire. You cost me $1.2 billion. Convince me it ends here. Kira launched the legend. Mid-level analyst, passed over for promotion, a Tokyo contact who paid in untraceable crypto. Diego interrupted with surgical precision. The custodian. The patent. Assured stock. Payroll patch. Voss saves. All after your leak. He slid photos across the bar. Blake's HR file, the napkin grid, a grainy still of Shantel in the loading dock. Explain the ghost. Kira's eyes flicked to the images, then back to Diego. I fed Tokyo. The rest is coincidence. Diego leaned in, cedar and gun oil thick. Coincidence doesn't save $8 million on invoices. Or lock lithium contracts. He tapped the mugging report. Harlem. 11:47 p.m. You were there. Kira's voice cracked. Real grief, Olden's loss bleeding through. I read the file. I didn't pull the trigger. Diego's smile thinned. But you know who did. Silence stretched like piano wire. Shantel's pulse thundered. Jonathan's fingers brushed the panic button. Kira exhaled. Cartel cleanup. Orders from your uncle. Diego's eyes narrowed. Prove it. Kira slid a flash drive across the bar. Bank records. Your shell wired the hitter. Forged flawless. Diego pocketed it without checking. If this is a lie. He let the threat hang. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. If Elena's a lie, I'll find the truth in your ashes. The door clicked shut like a guillotine. Jonathan exhaled first. We're live. Kira tapped her bra. Crystal. Shantel stared at the city below. Diego's words echoing. The decoy held, but the fuse burned shorter. Shantel's reflection stared back from the suite's darkened window. Diego's parting threat still ringing in her ears. The decoy had bought hours, not safety. Her burner buzzed at 6:03 a.m. Saturday. DOJ Federal Building. Room 412. 10 a.m. Elena alone. Or Nevada lithium plant explodes by noon. Asterisk asterisk. Diego had escalated to federal ground, neutral and wired for sound. Shantel forwarded the text to Kira and Jonathan. We're all going. By 8:17 the three converged in a DOJ satellite office subbasement, fluorescent lights humming like hornets. Jonathan laid out the rules. Monitored room, panic button, no weapons. Kira, still in Elena's hoodie, reviewed the flash drive one last time. Shantel paced. He wants solo. I'm not leaving you. Kira's scar twitched. Then I walk in first. You two shadow the glass. Jonathan nodded, already dialing the U.S. Attorney liaison. Rooms booked under sealed case review. Mics hot, cameras rolling. Shantel's eyes never left Kira. If he smells the lie, we burn the drive remotely. Kira pocketed a second device. Dead man switch. He won't. Room 412 sat behind 3 checkpoints, steel door, one-way glass. Diego waited inside. Linen traded for a charcoal suit. No operatives. Kira entered at 10:02, shoulders slumped, Elena's defeat etched in every step. Shantel and Jonathan watched from the observation booth. Heartbeats synced to the wall clock. Diego did not rise. Miss Drake. No lawyers. No recordings. Kira slid into the metal chair. You picked the room. Your rules. Diego leaned forward, voice low. Start with the wire transfer. June 14, 2011. Cayman to Harlem. Kira recited without hesitation. Account 4472B. 250,000. Routed through Navarro Holdings, Panama. Truth. Diego's eyes narrowed. The hitter's name. Raul Mendez. Sinaloa. Paid in cash. 168th and Amsterdam. Lie, but the street was real. Diego tapped the table. The wife. Described the sidewalk. Kira's breath hitched. Real grief, her own partner lost in Kandahar. Cracked concrete. Blood pooled under a busted street lamp. She clutched a grocery bag. Milk leaked white. Her voice cracked. Diego studied her face, hunting the flinch. Kira met his gaze, tears unshed. He exhaled. You hated Voss enough to burn it all. Kira nodded. They buried my promotion. I buried their merger. Diego pocketed the flash drive. For now, Elena pays the debt. He stood. But if the drive's clean and the trail dies with you, we're square. Cross me again, and Iceland won't hide you. He left without another word. Jonathan killed the mics at 10:41. Kira emerged pale but steady. He bought it. Shantel's relief lasted seconds. Diego's warning about Iceland meant he had already traced Kira's exit plan. They burned the drive in a DOJ incinerator by 11:03. That night Kira boarded a private charter to Reykjavik under a fresh legend. Blake clocked out at 11:57 p.m. Badge surrendered, locker emptied. A courier delivered a Canadian passport to the loading dock at 12:14. Name redacted. Destination rural Alberta. By dawn both were gone. Shadows dissolving into snow and pine. Snow still clung to the Alberta pines when Shantel's burner pinged at 3:14 a.m. Monday. A single encrypted photo. Blake's new cabin, smoke curling from a stone chimney, a fishing rod propped against the door. The sight cracked something open in her chest. She stared at the image until the screen dimmed, then opened the secure laptop. Diego's warning about Iceland had been a probe. Kira's relocation held. But every napkin note now carried a death sentence. Blake's intel had saved billions, yet each delivery tightened the noose. She typed a final message on a fresh napkin, folded it once, and drove to the building at 4:03 a.m. The cafeteria condiment caddy waited under flickering fluorescence. She tucked the note behind the salt. No more. Live free. Asterisk asterisk. The pipeline died with the dawn. By 7:12 a.m. Shantel stood in the loading bay, watching the night crew clock out. Among them was Leo Grant, 28, lanky, curls escaping his cap. For 6 months he had organized food drives from the janitor's closet, filling crates with canned goods for families hit by overtime cuts. Workers called him the quiet general. Shantel approached as he stacked empty boxes. Leo. Office. Now. He followed wary. In the war room she slid a contract across the obsidian table. Employee welfare liaison. Direct line to me. 150 base, profit share, full benefits. Leo blinked. I mop floors, Miss Voss. You feed people. Same skill, bigger scale. He read the terms twice, then signed with a trembling hand. By noon the intranet announced the new role. Cafeteria chatter exploded. Hope had a name. Wednesday's board meeting crackled with resistance. Shantel projected the reform package. Living wage index to local CPI, 10% profit-sharing pool, unlimited mental health days with no questions. Liam bought. Margins shrink 8%. Vanessa, silent since the washroom, added. Stock will tank. Chantel's voice cut like glass. My 52% says we vote now. The gavel fell. Package passed. Dissenters received polite emails. Vest options accelerated, golden parachutes attached. By Friday the intranet glowed with new policies. Turnover projections flipped green. Leo's first initiative, on-site daycare pilot, launched in the old storage bay. Thursday 11:47 p.m. Shantel returned to her office after Investa call. A polished brass elevator button sat centered on her desk, reflecting the city lights. Beneath it, a napkin in Blake's block letters. You were never beneath anyone. You just made us look up. Beat ****. She traced the engraving, throat tight. The empire stood taller, built on the invisible backs she had finally seen. Shantel slipped the brass button into her pocket, the napkin's ink already fading under her thumb. She locked the office and descended to the lobby, heels silent on marble. 1 year had carved new lines into the building, murals by cafeteria kids on the walls, a daycare laughter track drifting from the east wing, prime rib scent wafting every Friday. The intranet crowned Voss Dynamics, best workplace, for the third quarter running. Leo's welfare dashboard glowed green. 300 jobs saved through retraining stipends, mental health leaves honored without question. The empire hummed on foundations once invisible. Friday 6:03 p.m. the loading bay transformed. String lights crisscrossed overhead, folding tables groaned under potluck casseroles, a banner hand-painted in marker. Thank you, Blake. 300 filled the concrete cavern. Cooks in aprons, guards in polished boots, cleaners still in navy jumpsuits. Leo stood on a pallet stage, microphone feedback squealing. He never asked for credit, he began, voice cracking. Just that we see each other. Applause thundered. Shantel took the mic, emerald eyes scanning the sea of faces. Value has no pay grade, she said, the words steady. Across the crowd Blake stood at the back, salt and pepper stubble trimmed, flannel shirt new. Their eyes met. He mouthed 2 words. Thank you, she nodded once, throat tight. The crowd surged, lifting him onto shoulders, laughter echoing off steel beams. Prime rib plates passed hand to hand. Someone started a chant. B.H. BH. Blake grinned, embarrassed, alive. Later, war room dark except for city glow. Shantel sat alone at the obsidian table. She unlocked the bottom drawer, lifted the brass button and napkin. The quarterly report waited on her laptop, final draft. She added a footnote in 12-point font. In memory of the man who taught us to see, cursor blinked, then saved. She closed the drawer, the click final. Dawn painted the Alberta cabin in rose and gold. Blake cast his line into Miracom water, breath fogging. A folded newspaper lay on the dock chair. Headline: Voss Dynamics employee retention hits 92%. He smiled, folded the paper once, and tossed it into the wood stove. Flames curled the edges, ink blackening. The line tugged. He reeled slow, steady, the empire's echo fading with the smoke.